Hello, welcome to the Inner Flame podcast, where I look at the energy of the week, download goddess codes, give practical, embodied intel, that's the word I'm going with, and share the galactic being that I have been channeling for the last 7 years. Might not be that long, but I can't do math. No, I think it was that long. I think it's been that long. I remember really opening up with my mediumship, really starting to develop my skills. And I remember reading one of Tom Kenyon's books, and it was actually the Hathor material, which feels like such a full circle moment because Hathor is also one of my guides. Anyway, in the beginning of his book, he was talking about how when he channels, he goes through this period where it's like an existential crisis, because it's like everything that he thought he knew about reality would shatter. And I felt so validated, because even channeling loved ones and understanding a little bit of what I could get of the other realm was like, whoa, this isn't anything what I thought. I mean, I grew up going to church. I do not participate in the church at all. I actually, and this isn't to when I'm sharing, this is not anyone to feel bad or they're not on their right path. This is me sharing my personal experience, and my beliefs. I do not resonate with the Bible. I do not resonate with the stories that we've been given. And I think most of the time that the stories there's way more to them than meets the eye. So I remember feeling like, oh wow, I'm not really getting this idea of like heaven. I'm getting something way more expansive, which even though my soul really resonated with that, it took time for me to really allow that to integrate into my field and into my body. So I really was like, wow, I feel so seen. I feel so validated, because Tom was really every time it's intense. And what's also very interesting too is that he was like, he had started connecting with the Hathors, and he was like, I'm not doing this. Leave me alone. And I also completely understand that, as a medium, as an energy reader, there are times where you're like, I'm not ready. And I will say, it was when I started reading his material a little bit, I was like, he calls the Hathors actually kind of like an alien being or a galactic being. And I was like, I really want to open myself to be able to channel something that far away, right? And you could think about it in space, you could think about it dimensionally, you could think about it like frequency. But at the time I was like, I want to get my frequency high enough that I could connect with a being like that. Enter Celeste. And I remember starting to communicate with Celeste, and I was like, what is happening? Holy crap, this is so crazy. And what I started getting from Celeste was these energetic imprints, love notes, guidance of what humanity is going through and what we are getting to. And I couldn't really identify what Celeste was at first. She didn't really have form. She wasn't solid. I could see through her. She had a very violet magenta hue to her. Her head was actually kind of elongated, and kind of like came to like more of a, not like a point, but it was definitely, rounded and then kind of came up. There was nothing solid about her. She was humanoid looking, but with lots of flow to her. She was extremely and is extremely expansive. And when I first started communicating with her, it was really weird because what the energy that I would receive from her was so loving. But when she would give these messages, like literal messages, there was such neutrality to it as well. So it was like really interesting to feel this love, but also feel her neutrality, basically not getting so invested. And she said, humans have a very unique coding to have a very wide bandwidth for emotions. And that made me feel pretty good because, like, to me, emotions are one of the beautiful things about our species. So anyway, Celeste is non-human, and what's really been interesting about communicating with Celeste is that she's never been human. She's never had a human existence. And I also kind of appreciated that because there wasn't maybe the coding or the confusion from another lifetime or from anything else. So what I am doing in sharing this is I felt really called out because I had dabbled a little bit with really working with Celeste and sharing about Celeste, but I still don't feel like I was fully embodied to be able to handle the energy of what I wanted to do with it. And now I feel like I've finally landed and I can speak to this a little bit more in an embodied way. And I shared a little bit about like the heretic, the path of the heretic, and Medusa actually coming through. And I was like, wow, I can see where I'm still playing safe so much in what I do. And I don't want to do that anymore. I really want to give myself the opportunity to really truly expand my work and be true to what I'm doing, meaning not be worried about how it will be perceived or what people have to say about it or anything like that. Really being able to stand in my own soul's path. So I want to share, this is like the introduction to Celeste, and then I feel like I can really move forward with the information, that I've been getting and for humanity, because I feel like if I don't, I'm doing a disservice to humanity. That's why I have this information, right? That's why I was able to connect with her in the first place. Okay, so another cool fact is that I didn't really have words to describe Celeste at the time. Now, as time has gone on and I've expanded more, I know her to be plasma. She is formless, but can take form, but she is not solid. And the other interesting thing is that she comes from the a galaxy in the Cancer constellation. And my friend actually pointed this out to me, who's an astrologist. She said, you're a Cancer rising. Isn't that interesting? It's like she's helping you rise even from that constellation. Like the energies of where she's coming from is woven into my blueprint for this exact time and space. And I just thought that was like so profound. And that's also why I named the podcast The Inner Flame, where stardust meets the body, because it's stardust, right? We're taking the cosmology, the energies of the cosmos, and we're trying to like ground it in and be with the earth. So that to me feels so amazing. And it was really this full circle moment too, where I had a conversation with a friend the other day and I was like, whoa. And this was meant for me, not necessarily for anybody else, but the impact in that moment was like, oh, okay, I'm ready to move forward. She's saying to me, it's go time. And I'll get into that. So with Celeste, I was always getting future, humanity, where we stand as a species, expansion, higher awareness. She's the one who told me that we will be moving into, and that's what we're moving into, is a self-governing human. So things will look very different. And when I was channeling all of this information, again, it was like my soul recognized this information, but for me to integrate it, it was too much. I actually, and this, what's very interesting is I wasn't even quite stable when I was channeling for loved ones. It was very hard for me to be in my body. And I kept channeling Celeste, and I kept channeling Celeste, and I loved it because I wanted to hear what she had to say. But I remember this one time I went for acupuncture, and I was like, it was just quiet. I'm a mom of two. It gets very loud here, and as my kids have grown, sometimes it's harder to get that quiet space. So I remember going, oh great, this is awesome. I can go somewhere else and I'm going to use the word disassociate, because I was constantly wanting to go somewhere else rather than be in my body. And it wasn't until Celeste and Magdalene, also another guide who has been with me for quite some time, said to me, no. You know, I would go on these self-journeyed meditations. I didn't need anyone guiding it. It was like I would almost astral travel. And I would go somewhere and I would get all these downloads. And both of them kind of stopped me and said, you need to focus on being in your body. You need to stop trying to go somewhere else. And I remember saying to her, but I want to go meet where you are. You know, like I was trying to go up so high. And she said no. She basically blocked me and said, you need to focus on embodiment. And that started this whole journey for me to truly be grounded and embodied to be able to do the work that I'm doing. And that has been that, like, you know, when I do readings and hold sessions, it's not always like a one and done thing, right? Like there's an unraveling that happens, you know, there is a whole process, and it doesn't happen in a month. This has been 5 years. 5 years of me really, really working on embodiment. And what does that look like? And when I say embodiment, like our systems have to be safe. Like my system has to know that it's safe to be able to take in that amount of information. That's nervous system care. That's embodiment. I can't embody these codes until my body is like, oh, we're good here. We are used to the blueprint of expanding and contracting without collapse, because that was the other thing. I would go into collapse. I would do something and then I would either get sick. I would kind of go into hermit mode. I do love a good hermit mode, but it's not necessarily from collapse anymore. It's because I want to quiet the noise of life and really give myself an opportunity to be in my own energy or my life's energy. So this whole unraveling really happened for me, which is full of details, full of journeys, full of ups, full of downs, and to this very moment where it all came full circle and I was energetically given the okay, not just from them, but literally felt in my body, I can move forward. I'm not going to be dragging my feet anymore. And I'm like speaking a lot in metaphor, but like if you have worked with energy, you might know what I mean. Sometimes it feels like you're pulling yourself through quicksand and you can't take the steps that you really want to take, whether you work with energy or not. You might still know what I'm referring to. I tend to live in my head. I am a Pisces sun sign, so I like to daydream. I like to be, it's easy for me to disassociate. But what I was understanding from Celeste and Magdalene, primarily my main guides, was that I really needed to learn to be okay in my body. I would channel and I would shake. I would shake. And it was just too much energy. I remember even talking about like what the information that was coming through, and like my body would just shake. Like my body did not think that it was safe to get this kind of information. And instead of offering myself what I needed, I was just like, we're just going to keep going. But I would end up with these massive collapses where, again, I would get sick. I'd have a vision and I would start it and that would just fall apart because I just could not keep up with the expansion. And so that's where Celeste was like, we need to take the living up in the head and being in the body and merge them. So you're not just up here. And I kind of felt like from Celeste, I kind of had to put her on the back burner to really be able to be in my body. And the other day I was like, man, it's going to make me cry. Like thinking I miss her. Like I miss her energy being around. And I tapped into her and she was like, I've not gone anywhere, but I'm going to come back soon and you're going to be ready. And that was like, and I felt that, I felt it. I was like, I am ready, but I had to go on my journey. And what I love so much about working with guides and goddesses and galactic beings is when they're in the frequency of love, they are not going to stop you from doing anything, but they are going to always want you to be the best that you can be. And they are also going to let you have your own journey. And that's what I had to do. And it took 5 years. And I'm not sorry about that. I'm not sorry about that. So this whole shift happened where it was like, I've got to stop being in my head and I need to start being in my body. And that's where I was really guided to start working on my body, working on my womb, working on my own cycles. Like all of this, I would say, happened really in the last 2 years. Before that, it was just being okay when I had anxiety or when I had a pain, like just being able to witness it, sitting with it rather than trying to like push it away. Because I also had a lot in my pain body, and that's a whole other story. And what was so interesting too with Celeste, and I think that's why with Celeste and Magdalene, they are woven together so beautifully, because Celeste is so much cosmic energy and Magdalene helps me ground it in. So I can take all this information, but Magdalene is going to give me the energetics to help me be in my body and really understand, well, what does this look like every day? Now I have the practices, right? The embodiment practices to serve myself, right? Like the energetic hygiene that I was like really thinking was frou-frou or woo-woo. And you know what? To a degree it was. And do you want to know why? Because me just saging without doing anything to my body, this is what another thing Celeste gave to me. You are constantly doing things to alter your external, but you are not doing enough to alter your internal. So the sage isn't going to do anything if my internal is not feeling safe. And that really was like, holy crap. So it was this whole download of all this cosmic energy, like what's happening with humanity, and then me totally freaking out, and Celeste being like, yeah, we need to like bring it down. This is going to be way too much for your system. And it was, and I'm grateful for her to guide that. And I feel like she also helped guide me to the goddesses, because that's how when I give these goddess codes, I love hidden history, and I feel like each goddess carries a level of this hidden history, these stories that are not necessarily tapped into, which I also feel like is guided by Celeste, but also how to ground this in my everyday life, right? What does it mean? How am I supposed to show up to this? How do I integrate this? And it feels like so big and expansive, but it's also like we've got to be the bridge, right? Like I needed the bridge, and I needed my body to act as the bridge rather than just being like, whoa, you know, like taking it all in, but not being able to do anything with it. So with Celeste, and again, this is her introduction, like, she's a galactic being. You know, the other day I watched Contact for the first time in a long time, and that was one of my favorite movies growing up. And, you know, spoiler alert, if you haven't seen Contact with Jodie Foster and Matthew McConaughey, when she travels, well, I don't even really think she traveled to Vega. I think she was like she traveled in a wormhole. She might have traveled to Vega, but it might have just been existing in the wormhole. I don't know. But she traveled through, and time on Vega was very different than time on Earth. And so on Earth, it's like no time passed at all. It was 3 seconds. But in Vega, it was like 18 hours. And you see this, before it turns into her dad, you see this like kind of floaty, clear, blobbish type formless form floating towards her. And I was like, oh my gosh, that reminds me of Celeste, because Celeste doesn't walk. She like floats. And she also is not necessarily clear, but she doesn't have color. You can see through her. You know, she does have color, but she doesn't like look like us. And she almost, I know this is going to sound really terrible, but her head kind of reminds me of is it not the Demogorgon, but the big thingy in Stranger Things. I'm going to have to look it up now because I can't remember what it is. I feel like I want to look it up. Like the spider thingy. The mind flayer. And I know that's like, oh my God, that doesn't sound good. And I don't mean it because she's negative. I mean it because like the head, like it kind of is rounded and then it kind of comes to a point. And that's kind of like what her head is. And it almost reminds me of like the crystal skulls. Like where the head is actually elongated. That's kind of like what Celeste's head looks like. Anyway, I feel so much more grounded in what I'm supposed to be doing and what my purpose is. And I'm a busy mom. I do many things. I still do hair to try to help support my family. I am trying to grow my business and expand. I do readings and sessions with my amazing clients. I homeschool my 2 children. Like, I'm very, very busy, but I don't know where I was going with this. Now I do. I needed a way to fulfill my purpose, and I didn't know what that looked like. And now I feel very clear on what I am to do and what I want to share and how I can share. And I think me not actually sharing Celeste is me not claiming my heretic path, right? My soul's true path, because that actually equals freedom. And she's such a big part of my life and the information that I get and what I'm learning and how I'm growing and expanding and have an understanding of where we are going into this new paradigm. And I just realized I had my microphone plugged in and I wasn't even using it. So hopefully you can hear me. So this is the introduction to Celeste. I'm going to be sharing way more about the new paradigm, the new earth, the frequencies, what Celeste is saying that us as humans are going through right now, and how we can work through that, and how we can ground that in as well. Also doing the energy reads and the goddess work, because that has sustained me, and that has helped me evolve and grow and expand so much I can't even tell you. So this, I feel like I can finally, I had the full circle moment where I feel like I can finally share in a grounded way that feels good, makes sense, and I can handle it, right? Like I can handle the transition of the energy now. And this to me is saying, with Celeste, and my goal was always to reach higher and higher and higher and higher and higher and just keep going and going and going and going. But it's not about just reaching higher. It is about learning how to hold it here. And that really has been such a journey for me. So if you're in the energy world or you are working with people in that capacity, you might understand what I mean, where you can easily feel the energies around you. And even on a spiritual path, you talk about ascension, but from what I've learned from Celeste and what I've learned in my own journeys with the goddesses, it's not just about going high and being all up here. It's about being able to meet, right? So as the root is going up, the crown is coming down, and they're meeting as above, so below, right? And it's like the tree of life. As your roots are growing more, the top of the tree is growing more, but they work together, and that's how it works for me. That doesn't mean that's how it works for everybody, but that's how it works for me, and how I continue to work by taking this information from up here, but also making sure that my roots are strong enough. And why I want to share so much about the embodiment is because I don't think we understand how much our nervous system is in control of how we manifest our life. And that to me is a very important aspect, because, which another thing I'll get into, but it's kind of like you can have a breakthrough, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to equal transformation. If there's nothing to help you ground that breakthrough into your everyday life, then no transformation is going to happen. It's just going to exist up here. And we use the language that I use a lot is land. When you finally landed with it, it's you're done flying the kite, and the kite took you off up into the sky, and now you're like, whoa, I've landed with this. But you've got to allow your body to feel safe enough to land. So I'm really excited to share more about Celeste, because I think we need this, right? I think we need more people talking about the beauty and what is coming in this new earth and this new paradigm, and how to get there. And I think right now the world looks like doom and gloom, and I have never... And listen, I've been doing this work for a while, for 10 years, but I also, my whole life, I have had some really interesting experiences. So I'm not going to just say that I know there is darkness out there, right? But I have never, Celeste has always got, she gives it to me straight, where it's like, this might be hard. This might be difficult. This is really crunch time for humanity, but never anything like we're not going to be okay. And I truly feel that in me. And I feel like I can finally anchor into that as well. So I'm looking forward to sharing. If you have any questions specifically for Celeste, you can always leave a comment. I'd love to hear. And especially about, our future and humanity and things like that. I would love to help the audience, if you're feeling a certain way, And I'm finally feeling like I can claim this for myself. So if you're here from the very beginning, I just want to say thank you. And I can't wait to see how everything comes together.